didn't realise right to the end that this interpreter who'd been with us the whole time and praying with us, that she was a compassion kid when she was younger. Parents working 7 days a week, holes in their roof, getting wet during the night as it would rain. She came from incredible poverty.
Let's do this.
Cool.
Okay. My name is Pip Taylor, and I'm having the privilege of having an interview with Zane Howell, one of the other pastors here at Southport Church of Christ, and unpacking a bit of his recent trip to Indonesia with compassion. We're taking the time to do this because most of you are going to want to ask Zane these questions, and you're probably not going to get the opportunity to do so. So I thought, let's have a moment, ask some of these questions, and I'm sure you might even have follow-up ones that Zane would be happy to answer at some point. But we want to unpack a bit more of this trip, Zane, because it was a week long, but I'm sure that we could spend a couple of hours having an interview and we would not cover everything.
Yeah.
So we're going to just try and draw out as much as we can in a short amount of time. Can you just tell us, what would just be one word you would use to describe this trip?
Yeah, it was a really good trip. I guess if I had to describe it in one word, for me, it would be encouraging.
Why? Why do you use that word?
So I think you go into a third world country thinking that there's going to be a lot of stuff that you see that is confrontational and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. And you go to a country like Indonesia where there's not a crazy lot of Christians compared to the whole population. But I was so surprised as I left Indonesia just how encouraged I was to see the amazing work that God is doing over there in all these different ways, and through, I guess, Compassion as an organization and through the churches that we visited. So we got to see so many Christians, so many churches, the great programs they're running. And so I just walked away just so encouraged that I guess God's doing his work. Regardless of where it is in the world, God is behind the scenes doing all this work. And I just got encouraged to see that firsthand.
Now, that's incredible. You went with a plan of what you were kind of doing. You know, you were going to go see the work of compassion on the field, the work of the office that runs, the work that's happening out in more rural locations through the local churches. Was there anything, though, as you were going about this plan that kind of took you by surprise that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, so it was a busy trip. Like, we didn't have a lot of downtime at all. We got there and then we broke up into two groups. So one group was all the pastors and another group was some of the significant sponsors. And so the significant donors or sponsors, they went off to a really remote island, and we spent some time in Jakarta, visited the national office and visited a lot of churches and a lot of places. And I think for me, I guess one thing that I was surprised by, that I was affected by the most, was probably the stories that I heard from not necessarily just the kids. The kids were powerful, but some of the adults who, when they were younger, were kids, and the incredible difference that compassion made in their lives to get them to where they were. I think that just really shocked me. I wasn't expecting to be so surprised and encouraged by the stories of these adults of what a difference compassion had made in their own personal lives. I think I just wasn't ready for that, really.
Yeah. Was there a particular person or a particular interaction that really, really stood out to you?
So probably one of the most significant interactions for me, it was a bit of a surprise. So we had a really wonderful interpreter that worked for Compassion, and she kind of took us around. She shared the kind of Java experience with us, being in Indonesia. She connected us with people. She was just bubbly and fun and friendly, and it was great. And towards the end of our trip, we had an alumni dinner where we got to talk with a lot of these adults and the great things they were doing. But I didn't realize right to the end that this interpreter who'd been with us the whole time and praying with us, that she was a Compassion kid when she was younger. And so I was really shocked when I heard that, and she shared a bit of her story, and it was powerful. She came from incredible poverty, parents working 7 days a week, holes in their roof, getting wet during the night as it would rain, just real difficulties, a lot of difficulties in her life, just hardly any food, hardly saw her parents. And then she told the story about how she kind of got into the Compassion program, and as she kind of gave her life to the Lord, connected in with churches. She went through and she went to one of the best universities in Jakarta and got a master's in linguistics, came back to work for the organization and just doing this incredible work coming alongside. And just the young women who would connect with her would just light up as she did her thing. And I was just thinking, man, somebody paying $50 $50 a month transformed this girl's life, transformed her family's life, and now we're transforming other people's lives through her. I think for me that just, it rattled me in the change that we can make by being generous here in the West.
Yeah, really huge. Can you tell me, like, Compassion does a great job of helping us at least understand a glimpse of the lives of some of the people that we are seeking to serve or that are being sponsored. And even I think nowadays in the digital age, we're seeing so much content from so many different people around the world that we can kind of almost assume that we understand someone else's experience in life. When you went and you're actually on the ground, actually in the context, chatting with people, engaging with people, was there something that you went, I think I hadn't grasped this just by looking from overseas or by looking online?
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, one thing that you hear but you don't really understand is how poverty affects young people and the way they see their world. We have poverty here in Australia, but it's different. Like poverty over there is just so crippling that these people, when they're struggling just to get their next meal and they feel like they're just in this survival mode, and so they don't really dare to hope. They don't hope for a future or a career or bettering themselves. It's just kind of, let's survive the day. Let's get enough food to get by. Kids will take time off school to care for their parents and to do extra work. And then it repeats that cycle of poverty as well because they can't get out of it. And so I think for me, I was a bit shocked to just see just how much poverty restricts the ability to hope and dream and further themselves. And then Compassion comes in and gives them that breathing room, I guess, to be able to step up out of that poverty to then think, you know what, I want to go to school. I want to learn English. I want to learn maths and finance and music, and then go on and do something with my life because I've got the freedom to do that. I just didn't think I realized how kind of encompassing poverty can be in just kind of putting that net over you that you can't change, and then they get locked in poverty forever. So yeah, I think I hadn't really seen that as much face to face.
Yeah. Seeing that kind of experience, it can feel really confronting. Would you say that was the area you struggled with the most, or was there other areas that you struggled with as you were confronted with just what other people go through?
Yeah. So I think you go in that setting, you often will think, man, I've got so much and they have so little. And so there's this sense of kind of conviction and responsibility that really sits on your heart. And so I was really challenged in that way. Like, it's just crazy how a small amount of money can just transform and make such a difference in their lives. Like, the letters that you write and the money that you give are transformational. And I think for me, it's easy for you to kind of write that off as it doesn't make much of a difference, but you see it firsthand and it's really powerful. I think one thing for me as well, when I was there was this really beautiful couple that I met, live on the Sunshine Coast. I won't say their names. I would hate it if I did. But just a really great couple who are doing really well in business. So they kind of own businesses doing really well. And they just sponsored so many kids. So we went to one church which ran a development center out of it. And there were like 11 kids at that one place. And there was one moment where they were lining up all these kids and their mums on a table, and they sat on the opposite end of the table to their sponsor kids. And the mums were just saying, thank you. Like, you've changed our lives. You've helped us so much. We're so grateful. And this husband and wife, the husband was just crying, tears streaming down his face as he just saw the lives, the worlds that he had changed with their finances. And I was just thinking, man, you couldn't spend money on something that would bring you that much joy. Like, I think for them, they made a decision at some point that kind of, hey, we don't need to drastically improve our quality of life. Let's transform the quality of life for all these people instead. And this couple mentioned to another person on the team that they had this vision that they want to spend $1 million a year sponsoring kids through Compassion, which is just phenomenal. But they have these beautiful, generous hearts. And I just think what they do can affect a whole generation. It's just wild to think that they can do that, and encouraging as well.
I guess in that as well, like, you see the big need, you see that there's an opportunity to help that need, and it can feel really like, okay, it's on me now. I've got to do something in this. But there's a partnership with God in this, right? Of how God is working both in that context, but also in you. Like, what did you find was something God was doing within you in this time?
Yeah. I had a really powerful just experience where we would often go to the churches, visit the churches who would run the development centers. And so they would relate to the kids by giving the kids food, bringing them in for extra education and training and stuff like that. But I just kept having these moments where I'd sit there and they would be sharing their stories or doing a little performance for us. And I just kept getting this overwhelming sense just flood through my mind and in my body that God was almost just showing me, I love these people. It was really surreal. It felt supernatural. It was just like, I got this glimpse into the heart of God that just loves these people. And I think for me, it's interesting because we've been going through the Beatitudes recently at church, and just how blessed are the meek, the poor in spirit, like the persecuted. I just looked at them and they didn't have a lot. Life was difficult, but God just loved them. And I kept getting this picture of it. And it helped me feel like I just really loved them as well. Like there's something about being there, being in that open position, wanting God to speak to you. I just felt like I just tapped a little bit into the heart of God, and it just made me even more in awe of him as well, which I just found really powerful.
It's so true, isn't it? We read throughout Scripture, especially in the Old Testament, like just how much God's heart was for the fatherless or the one who is vulnerable, that he never saw them as lesser than, but actually someone very close to his heart that he looked out for, which is a really, beautiful, beautiful thing. Did you, look, this is a hard question, where did you see God at work? I imagine everywhere. But was there something that just really stood out to you where God was pointing something out for you?
Yeah. There were a number of things that were just really powerful. We had a dinner with some of the local pastors. And so we broke off and we prayed with these other local pastors who had been just serving God faithfully for years and years, transforming one of the cities that we went to in Salatiga. And I just loved it. It was cool to talk to these other brothers and sisters in Christ who'd been laboring for the gospel. You instantly connect with them, you love them, and you want to pray for them and see them. And there were some really powerful moments where it felt like God really spoke to me. I just had some, light on moments during that as well. But there were also just some really simple moments. We checked into one of the hotels there, kind of one of the fancy Western hotels at the Western Estate when they're there. And we got up to the check-in desk, and there were the two people checking us in, saw our tags, and they said, "Are you guys from Compassion?" And they're like, yeah, we're from Compassion. And then they're like, "We used to be Compassion kids." And there was this bond and this fondness immediately. It was really, really special. And then one of our team members ended up getting sick, getting a bit of a tummy thing, as you do.
Yep.
And then he was unwell, but he had to check out of his hotel, but he was in the lobby. And he said, I think 8 people that worked there came up to him and asked if it was all right, checked in, was showing him all this compassion and kindness. And each of them were Compassion kids back in the day. Wow. And just the Compassion Project in the city had formed a relationship with this hotel where if the kids maybe can't go on to university, what they do is they pivot and get them vocational training to get them good quality jobs to lift them out of poverty. They work really dynamically, but these young people had gone through the Compassion program, got good jobs, and it's like they had this beautiful Christ-like kind of compassion as well, as they were kind of reaching out to this man who wasn't feeling really well. It was just this cool picture of this generational change that's happening over there that I was just so encouraged by. Yeah, it's really good.
Can I ask you as well, you shared this story actually with our staff team, and I think you're even going to share it on Sunday. So some people might have already heard this, but in case people didn't hear Sunday and now they're listening to this, can you tell us also that that thing that stood out to you with the music?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really beautiful story.
Yeah. So each place that we would go to, the kids would often do a bit of a performance for us, like a dance and a song. And the project coordinator said it was really good for their sense of confidence to do it. But we went to this location where they played this instrument, and it's called the angklung. And it's really interesting. It's made out of bamboo. It's a real traditional instrument. But each angklung only plays one single note. So you can't play a whole song on the angklung. It's impossible because you'll just have the C sharp, for example. And so you shake it and it makes this lung, lung, lung sound. Anyway, it's really interesting. But they were all playing this song and they were playing these old hymns. And I think they picked some Western ones that we would recognize. And each of them would play their angklung at the exact right moment. You could hear the melody popping out. It was just so beautiful. And there was this moment as I was listening to it where I just felt like God just spoke to my heart and said, you know what? That's what the body is like. We don't play the whole song. We're not the whole melody. It's not a one-person show. Each of us have a calling on our lives to play our note, and God stitches that all into a song. And so I was thinking about that in terms of some of the significant donors and supporters who are sponsoring these kids, and the pastors that were there, and the coordinator runners and the mentors. Everybody's doing their bit in God's kingdom, and it just stitches together into this beautiful song that God is doing in his kingdom. It was just really cool to see. I feel like God really spoke to me through that. I was so encouraged when I saw it and heard it. And they're really talented as well, those kids, like super talented. So, yeah, that was crazy.
That's a beautiful picture. Hey, we go on these kind of experiences and you know, I'm sure it flew past that whole week, and you're still probably unpacking pieces from that time. But we can't come back and just do what we used to do.
Yeah.
We can't come back unchanged. So how have you just started to see it play out or affect how you live life back here?
Yeah, it's so interesting when you think about mission, because the world is such a big place. Sometimes it feels like, can you have a heart for every place all over? And maybe to a degree, but I think for me, it's personal for me now. Like, there are people over there that I care about, that I love, and that I can't wait to see in heaven one day. We've got this family across the world, and I think for me, I want to be praying for them. I want to keep praying into that. I want to keep encouraging people to sponsor, to reach out, to form relationships, to walk and journey with people. One great thing about compassion is, and I really learned it while I was over there, is that the letters make a difference. They really do. And it's not just that you're just sending money to some kind of, I don't know, faceless bank account. You are supporting a child, and you have the opportunity to connect with the child. Just a letter with maybe just 20 words saying, hey, I've been praying for you, hope you're doing well, actually makes a difference in their lives. And so I think I really want to encourage people, just take some time, write a letter, build a relationship, pray for them, and look for the opportunities for what God is going to do, and look for the note that he's called you to play. I think I heard a story, one of the adults who went on to university after he left the compassion program and was struggling and just thinking, oh, I don't know if I can do it. That sense of belief in self, or that imposter syndrome, can be really strong when only the elites in countries like this get into university. But he told one of the other people on the trip, and they told it to me, that he would flip out the book, the folder with all of the letters that he'd received as a sponsor kid, and read through them for that sense of like encouragement from their sponsor, that they believed in him and that he can do it and he can work hard and he can achieve something. Like that, even those letters itself were this resource, this loving resource that he drew upon to do well in his field as well. Like it's not just money, but it's that connection, that personal connection, I think is really important. And I found that really beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for sharing with us, because I know that some of these things we might just hear them as an answer to a question, but actually they come from a deep experience of a deep connection with another person.
Yeah.
And so it's very vulnerable for you to share that with us. So I really appreciate that. And I know that there'll be things that you'll continue to unpack. But let me just encourage you, if you've been encouraged by this interview with Zane, check out Compassion. We'll have a link attached to this video as well, so that you can sign up to sponsor. Maybe even if you've already got a sponsor child, maybe just take 5 minutes, write them a little letter right now. And we just want to encourage you to also, as Zane said, see what's your one note to play. I wonder how God would use that in the world. Thanks for taking the time with us today.